G'day, my name's Caitlyn West, and this is a talk on the topic of friendship in a time of division. Look, I don't think it's like the most hot take right now to say that we are living in a divided world. It's pretty obvious, and I think, things like, say, the US election definitely made that a lot clearer. But even before then, I think, it's been becoming over time more and more apparent that we're living in a world where we're becoming more and more polarized, and the people on both sides of those poles are not talking to each other. And it's something that I think affects us all. I've certainly experienced it, and I've certainly participated in it myself. I remember a couple of years ago, I was talking to a friend at work, and we were quite close colleagues, and it came up somehow that I'm pro-life. And I tell you what, she instantly shut down and literally started backing away from me. And I was like, "Are you okay?" And she was like, and I was like, you want to talk about it? We can talk. And she was like, and I was like, "Do you want to talk?" And then she ran away. And I was like, wow, you literally just ran from me because you found out that I disagree with you on something. But then I do it myself. Like, even during the election, I remember, coming across stuff on, YouTube or social media or whatever, and just being like, "Oh, unsubscribe. Thank you. I don't want that crap in my ear. I will have none of that. Thank you. How could I listen to someone who would vote for that person? Or how could you say that about that candidate? Like, it's just ridiculous." And, I sort of stopped at one point and was like, wow, I'm really contributing to this culture of division. But it's so easy to do. And actually, this is something that I've got my handy encyclical here. Pope Francis, in his latest encyclical, you can see I'm like midway through reading it, that he talks about this, about how easy it is to just shut people out when we don't like them and we don't agree with them. And that we kind of all do it, on social media and just in our daily lives. We just don't talk to people that we don't like and that we don't agree with. I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and he was just going on about how he loves the suburb that he lives in. He's like, "I love living there. It's just so great." And I was like, "Oh, what do you like the most about it?" He was like, "You know what? The thing I love the most is that when I walk down the street, I know that everyone around me agrees with me." And he was like, "Sometimes I go to other suburbs and I'm just like, I know that there are people here who vote for a different party, and I just can't, I can't even engage with those people. I can't even understand them." And I think part of the reason why we do that is because it is so easy to do nowadays. And also I think because people are being pushed to more kind of extreme ends with their opinions. And so the further we get from someone else and the more extreme they appear to us, the harder it is for us to understand why they would think what they think or to want to engage with them. At the same time, we know we live in a culture of division, but we also know that this is not what our Lord is asking of us. And we only have to flip through the Bible to see that. It's like every second page, our Lord is having dinner with a tax collector. And he didn't just kind of encounter people from a distance and sort of deliver a, speech on what's right and wrong and then kind of walk away and leave them to themselves. He got right in amongst the mess of their lives. He had dinner with them. He got to know them. He became part of the family. I was reading something recently about how some people think that Mary of Bethany, so Mary and Martha and Lazarus, that was the same Mary as Mary of Magdala. And I'm like, wow, that is a beautiful idea, that Mary of Magdala was such an outcast and such a sinner, and that our Lord didn't just kind of free her of these 7 demons. He also, he became part of the family. He really got involved in her life and in her family life. And then, when our Lord tells us the parable of the Good Samaritan, at the end of that parable, he says, "Go and do the same." This is, again, something that Pope Francis picks up on. He unpacks the parable of the Good Samaritan and reminds us that we're called to do the same. We're called to encounter the other, to encounter people who are not like us. And we know that, right? We're good Christians and we know that we should do that. But then the question is how? Because it's so hard when I find that person's opinions just repulsive or scary, or I just can't, I don't have any access point. I'm I don't know how you could possibly believe that. And I think that there are two things that can help us to develop genuine friendships with people we disagree with. The first is love. The second is listen. Love and listen. Now, before you just switch this off and go, oh, Caitlyn, that's so obvious. We all know that. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love. Love is like the center of Christianity. Like everyone knows that. Wait, okay, there's more to it than that. Because I think we hear that, that we need to love others, but sometimes we don't think about what does it actually, what does it mean to love my friends? I remember talking to someone once who was saying, I'm not, I'm kind of a loosely religious person. I believe in Jesus and I don't have a particular church and I just live my life by the golden rule, love God, love your neighbor. I'm like, okay, I mean, cool, good, fair enough. But also like, what does that mean? What does it mean to love God? What does it mean to love your neighbor? Is it just like this fuzzy feeling that we have? Or is it something more? And can loving others be maybe the key to, growing in friendship with people that we might not find very attractive? The answer is yes. So Aristotle talks about 3 different types of friendships in his Nicomachean Ethics. I think that's how you pronounce it, but it may not be. He talks about friendships of utility, right? Where you are useful to me in some way. Friendships of pleasure, pretty self-explanatory. We have fun together. And then virtue friendships. And the thing that, distinguishes virtue friendships from other types of friendship is that it's based on a love for the other person that is centered on the fact that a love for the other person as just another person. Loving someone for who they are, regardless of, what they can give you or what you like about them. Loving that person because they are, from a Christian perspective, because they're a child of God and they deserve your love and your respect as a human person with inherent human dignity. And, I think this can be helpful for us to stop and think about our own friendships. What do my friendships look like? Are they just friendships of utility? Do I have a friend that I mean, really, we're basically just friends because she has a pool and it's like summer in Australia it's summer and it's warm and I like swimming in her pool? Or is it I'm friends with her because I agree with her on stuff and we both sit there, slagging off people who vote for a particular party or who think certain things, and it's very comfortable knowing that, yeah, we both agree, you think what I think and I think what you think, and maybe that's a friendship of pleasure. And the question is then, what would I do? How would I react if I found out that person disagreed with me on something big? If I found out, I don't know, whatever it is, the things that are the most important to me, what would I do if I found out that we clashed on that? Would we be able to have a conversation about it? And would it kind of mean the end of our friendship? And if it would, then maybe, it's not a virtue friendship, maybe. And obviously, utility and pleasure, important, good things, not a bad thing. I mean, everyone, that's a part of every friendship. It's one of the things that draws people together, but it needs to go deeper and there needs to be kind of more than that going on in a friendship. So that's one thing we can do, is think about like, okay, how do I love my friends? And do I really genuinely will their good? And actually, this is really important. St. Thomas Aquinas talks about this, that concord between two people, he says, is a union of wills and not of opinions. Which is so important to remember, that to be a friend with someone does not require me to agree with them. It requires mutual goodwill, that I will their good and they will mine. I want what's best for them and they want what's best for me. And that can also be really helpful in situations where, an argument happens or someone brings something up that you don't agree with. And you have that moment of like, what do I do? Should I say something? Should I tell this person I think that they're wrong? Should I challenge them on it? Should I just not say anything? Well, if we put at the heart of our friendship the good of the other person, then that will be really helpful in those moments, because sometimes we can be driven by this sense of like, oh, I have to say something. I can't let this slide. And maybe that's coming from a place of obligation or of even of pride, of wanting to, make sure that this person knows that I'm in the right, or that, I correct them, or I'm a good Christian and therefore I need to tell this person that they're in the wrong. Maybe you do, but also sometimes maybe you just need to listen, and maybe sometimes or pray for that person. Maybe they're not open to hearing it. And so there's no point in you kind of, hammering them with the truth if they're completely shut down, and that's just going to push them away even further. And this brings me to my second point, which is to listen. And this is actually something else that Pope Francis talks about in his encyclical, encountering others, and really like sitting with them, being with them, and loving them in the state that they're in, meeting them where they're at, and then really encountering them as another person, as another child of God. And Pope Francis talks a lot about the poor, people who are poor, people who are in pain. And, obviously there are kind of the obvious examples of that. So someone who's living in physical poverty, or maybe a migrant or a refugee, or someone who, is suffering in a really obvious way. But even just our friends at work that we disagree with, they're also poor and in pain, spiritually poor, and probably spiritually in pain, especially if they're being kind of aggressive and dogmatic about what they think. That signals a kind of insecurity or a need to assert themselves. And I think once we encounter that in another person, and we really remember that this is another human person with a human heart and a child of God, then it's a lot easier to listen to them rather than just trying to correct them. And this is the thing, like sometimes we can think, okay, if I listen to this person and ask them questions about what they think and try to understand what they believe, then maybe I'm just enabling them. Maybe they will think that I agree with them. And they won't ever know that I disagree. Well, okay. I mean, let's stop and think about that. If they're a true friend, and if you're a true friend to them, that conversation will happen at some point. They'll figure out what you think, or you'll tell them, or it'll come up naturally. You don't have to fight every single battle when it comes up. As well as that, if as soon as someone says something that we think is wrong, our first instinct is like, oh, I have to tell them that I disagree, I have to explain why they're wrong, then that person probably is just going to not care, not agree with you, and then not talk to you about it again. Whereas if our first instinct is like, okay, I want to listen, I want to understand, why do you think that? Where has that come from? And I've had those conversations with people before where you're like, we're going to have no common ground. I just can't understand why you would think what you think. Or your opinions are so odious to me. And then when you actually start to listen to them, obviously you don't walk away from it being like, I now think what you think. You still disagree with them, but you have that sense of like, oh, okay, I kind of understand where this has come from or why you feel that way. And I think that that's what we're like, it's such a little thing to listen to someone that you disagree with. It seems so little, but it is actually so important. And I think sometimes we can, okay, when I say listen to other people, that doesn't necessarily mean like indiscriminately go out and like read every book. And, sometimes we can be like, I have to understand other people's opinions. And then we can end up taking in so much stuff that it starts to mess with our heads. And we're like, I don't even know what I think anymore. Or like, I'm feeling really insecure in my own beliefs. Or, we don't want to threaten our faith by just indiscriminately consuming everything and just taking in everything and being super open to the point where it's like, yeah, anything goes. But at the same time, I think if we have solid formation, if we, I think Brene Brown talks about this, that, the people who they've done, experiments or whatever, or they've done research and figured out that the people who are the most open-minded are usually the ones with the strongest boundaries, which makes a lot of sense, because if you are really strong in what you believe and you know what you think, then you can go out and listen to other people's opinions, because it's not a threat to you. So, okay, we need to couple this with strengthening our own faith, right? And strengthening our own beliefs. Okay, so read a good book, go to the catechism, talk to someone that you trust, go talk to a good priest or whatever. Strengthen your own position and then encounter others. And this is my challenge to you, that, in the next week or two, find someone that you don't agree with. listen to them and try to love them, or place love at the heart of that interaction. By love, I mean willing their good. What do they need right now? So first of all, listen to that person. And look, if you don't have someone in your life that you can have this conversation with, go find a podcast, go find something on YouTube. Like, it's not hard to do. Find someone that you disagree with and just sit with their opinions and listen to it, and then try to think about, if it is a conversation, think about what does this person actually need and what's going to help them towards the good. Not what's my obligation right now, what do I need to say, how do I need to explain to them that they're wrong and that I'm right. What do they need? What is God asking me to do to help them to find him and to find truth? And I think if we are able to do that, if we put their good at the heart of our interactions, and if we genuinely allow ourselves without fear and, having the strength of our own convictions behind us to sit with another person's opinion, even when we feel that tension of like, I just want to unsubscribe, I just want to run away from this conversation, I want to shut it down, like I hate this is so uncomfortable, this is so painful, to ride it out, and then that can become the basis of like genuine encounter with someone that we disagree with, and then hopefully genuine friendship with people that from whom we were previously divided.